There is a silence that only warriors know, not peace, but the silence before the strike. Have you ever felt it? That heartbeat just before you act, when everything inside you hesitates. That space between fear and movement is where true power hides. The ancients called it Zanshin, the lingering mind, a state where awareness never breaks, even after the arrow is released. But we've forgotten it. We live in a world that worships noise, endless motion, endless distraction. We scroll, we chase, we react, but we rarely exist. So what happens when a restless man, lost in modern chaos, seeks silence instead of strength? When his search for mastery leads not to control, but surrender? This is not a story of battle. It's the story of what remains after the battle. The story of presence. This is the Way of Stillness. This is Zanshin. Chapter 1. The Noise Within. Part 1. You cannot hear the whisper of truth when your mind is louder than the world. The city never sleeps. It hums like a restless machine, metallic veins pulsing with neon blood. Screens glow in every direction, each one demanding attention, each one whispering, "Be more, do more, move faster." Amid this chaos walks a man in his mid-20s, shoulders tight, eyes hollow, earbuds plugged in to drown out what he fears most: silence. His name is Ryo. He was once a competitor in the art of kendo, known for his precision and speed. But lately, his strikes land empty. His victories feel numb. He moves through crowds like a ghost, his mind always somewhere else. A dozen unfinished thoughts collide in his head. Work deadlines, messages left unanswered, the fear that he's already behind. The world has taught him that stillness is weakness, and so he runs from moment to moment, never arriving anywhere. Tonight, the rain falls in thin, electric lines. Ryo walks into the dojo where he has trained since boyhood. Inside, his reflection in the polished floor looks fractured beneath the dim lights. The tournament ended hours ago. He lost, not because his opponent was stronger, but because in the final strike, his hands hesitated, his breath faltered. For a split second, doubt crept in. Now, alone, he relives it again and again. He grips his bamboo sword until his knuckles whiten. He swings, harder, faster, each strike echoing through the empty hall like thunder trapped in wood. But the more he swings, the louder his thoughts become. You failed again. You always break when it matters. You're not enough. He screams and throws the sword. It clatters against the floor, splitting slightly near the hilt. The sound pierces through his chest like a verdict, and then a voice, old, quiet, and steady. You have mastered movement, it says, but not stillness. Ryo turns. An elderly monk stands at the entrance, his robe damp from the rain, his eyes calm as a still pond. Ryo doesn't know him, yet something about the man feels ancient, like he has stepped out of another time. The monk walks forward slowly, each step deliberate. In every warrior's path, he says, there comes a time when the enemy is not another man, but his own mind. Ryo, breathless, wipes the sweat from his brow. Who are you? Someone who once fought the same battle you are losing now. He gestures toward the broken sword. You seek control, but control is a form of fear. The harder you grip, the less you hold. Ryo laughs bitterly. And what then? Let go and lose everything. The monk studies him. No, let go, and find everything. The words linger. They sound absurd, and yet something in them stirs a forgotten memory, a feeling from years ago when training still felt like meditation, when his sword was an extension of breath, not ego. The monk continues. Come to the mountains. There is a temple beyond the forest. There you will unlearn. Ryo hesitates. Unlearn? Yes. The monk smiles faintly. Before you can forge presence, you must first confront the noise within. Thunder rolls outside. The city lights flash through the windows, painting streaks across the floor. Ryo looks at the broken sword, then at the monk. For the first time in years, he feels the weight of his own exhaustion. Not physical, but spiritual. He nods slowly. The monk turns to leave. At dawn, follow the eastern road. Bring nothing that makes noise. When he's gone, Ryo sits in silence. He listens, and in that rare stillness between raindrops, he notices something new. The sound of his own heartbeat. The journey into stillness begins when a man grows tired of his own noise. Chapter 1. The Noise Within, Part 2. Dawn bleeds through the skyline. The city wakes not with grace, but with hunger. Engines growl, screens flicker to life. Somewhere beneath that mechanical hum, Ryo walks. Hood drawn, bag light, earbuds gone. For once, no sound fills the space between his thoughts. He follows the monk's instructions, eastward toward the mountains. Each step feels unfamiliar, as though he's walking out of one world and into another. Hours pass. Skyscrapers fade into mist. The hum of traffic dissolves into the soft rhythm of rain against leaves. The road narrows until it becomes nothing but a dirt trail winding through cedar trees. He has never known quiet like this. At first, it unnerves him. Without the constant noise, his mind rebels, filling the silence with old regrets, old arguments, echoes of what-ifs. Every failure he's tried to escape crawls back to the surface. Silence is not empty. A memory of the monk's voice whispers. It is full of what you run from. He tries to ignore it, but the stillness keeps pressing closer, like an invisible presence watching him. By the time he reaches the mountain's base, the sun is a dull red disk behind the fog. He stops to rest beside a stream. The water moves effortlessly, winding around rocks, whispering over moss. Something about it strikes him, how the water never resists, never fights, yet always moves forward. He kneels, cups his hands, and drinks. The cold shocks him awake. In the reflection, he sees his own eyes, tired, wild, uncertain. For a moment, he wonders if he's chasing a ghost, a temple in the mountains, a monk appearing out of nowhere. It sounds like something out of myth, and yet, so does the ache in his chest. He remembers the tournament, the noise of the crowd, the pressure, the way his pulse drowned out his breath. He'd trained for 10 years, memorized every form, every kata. But when it mattered most, all that training shattered under the weight of his mind. He grips a small stone and throws it into the stream. It sinks immediately, swallowed by water without resistance. He stares at the ripples expanding outward. The harder I fight, the louder the water screams. He doesn't know why, but those words rise from somewhere deep inside. Maybe the monk planted them there. Maybe they were his all along. As he climbs higher, the air grows thinner and colder. His body begins to ache. His thoughts become sluggish. But in that exhaustion, A strange calm begins to bloom. For the first time, his thoughts fall behind his footsteps. Every sound becomes sharper. The crunch of gravel, the whisper of wind through pines, his breath forming clouds in the air. He begins to realize something the monk had hinted at, that presence isn't built in comfort, but discovered in fatigue. When there's no energy left to maintain the noise. By twilight, he reaches a wooden gate at the mountain's edge. Carved into the beam above are 3 kanji: Kanshin, Zanshin, the way of lingering mind. A single lantern burns beside the entrance. There stands the monk, as though he had been waiting for hours. Ryo bows instinctively, unsure why. The monk nods. You've come far for a man who doesn't yet know what he seeks. Ryo hesitates. I want to master presence, to fight without fear. The monk studies him, then gestures toward the gate. Then first, you must learn to be without purpose. The words land heavy. To be without purpose. In Ryo's world, that sounds like death, yet something inside him, a small ember buried beneath ambition, feels ready to surrender. He steps through the gate. The sound of the city is gone. Only wind and breath remain. The monk closes the gate, behind him with a wooden thud, a single sound that marks the end of one life and the beginning of another. The warrior has left the noise behind, but silence will test him far more deeply. Chapter 2: The Empty Dojo, Part 1. When the student is ready, the lesson will be silence. The mountain temple is unlike anything Ryo imagined. He expected incense, chants, and the clang of swords, but finds only quiet. A courtyard swept clean, wooden halls worn smooth by time, and at the center, a vast dojo, empty except for a single broom leaning against a wall. The monk, whose name Ryo still doesn't know, leads him inside. The air smells of cedar and rain. The floor creaks softly beneath their feet. This will be your place of training, the monk says. Ryo looks around. There's nothing here. The monk's eyes soften. Exactly. For a moment, Ryo thinks it's a joke, but the monk simply gestures to the broom. Clean the floor. When you can sweep without seeking to finish, you may ask again to be taught. And with that, he leaves. Ryo stands alone, confusion thick in his chest. This can't be training. He came to learn mastery, not housework. But something in the monk's stillness keeps him from protesting further. He picks up the broom. The wood feels rough against his calloused hands. He starts to sweep. The motion feels mechanical at first, just movement to fill time. Dust rises in golden slivers where sunlight cuts through the open panels. He sweeps faster, then slower, then stops altogether. The silence presses in. He can hear the whisper of the broom's bristles, the rhythmic rasp of straw on wood. He tries to focus on it, but his mind keeps interrupting. This is pointless. I should be sparring. He's wasting my time. Every thought screams for stimulation, for motion, for reward. But the temple offers none, only the echo of his own restlessness. Hours crawl by. No one comes, no instructions, just the sweeping. As the sun sinks beyond the mountains, the wind carries the smell of rain again. Ryo drops the broom and sits by the wall, drenched in sweat and frustration. This can't be it, he mutters. This isn't training. The monk appears in the doorway, as if summoned by the complaint. He looks at the half-swept floor, then at Ryo. What did you see today? Ryo scoffs. Dust. The monk tilts his head. And where did the dust come from? Ryo shrugs. From everywhere. The monk steps closer, his gaze sharp. No, it came from time. from neglect, from movement that never paused long enough to see what it left behind. Your mind is the same. You've moved so much, you can no longer see your own dust. Rio looks away. The words sting because they feel true. The monk turns to leave again. Tomorrow, sweep with your breath. Let each motion end where the next begins. When you notice your thoughts shouting, sweep slower. He disappears down the corridor, leaving only the faint echo of his sandals against the wood. That night, Rio lies awake on the tatami mat, listening to the rain. He realizes he's spent his entire life moving towards something: achievement, victory, validation, but never once stopped to ask why. Here, in this empty hall, there's nothing to win, nothing to prove, and yet, something inside him begins to shift. For the first time, he feels what it's like to be left alone with himself, without distraction, without noise, without escape. It is terrifying. It is sacred. In the dark, he whispers a single question. If I am not my actions, then what am I? Outside, thunder answers softly, not with sound, but with stillness that follows it. When the body is denied movement, the mind reveals its own chaos. Chapter 2: The Empty Dojo, Part 2. Morning mist coils through the temple grounds, like breath made visible. The bell chimes once, low and resonant, as dawn bleeds into pale gold. Rio rises. Before the sound fades, the echo vibrating inside his ribs. The broom still waits in the same corner. He takes it in his hands again. This time, with less resistance, he begins to sweep. The motion is slow. Forward, back, forward, back. At first, his thoughts chatter like crows. What is the point? How long will this last? What am I doing here? But gradually, as the body settles into rhythm, something begins to loosen. He starts to notice details. The faint creak of floorboards beneath his bare feet. The pattern of sunlight shifting across the wood. The way each breath aligns with the arc of the broom. His mind still wanders, but each time it does, he brings it back. Not with force, but with awareness. This feels different. Hours pass unnoticed. By midday, the floor gleams faintly, and a strange peace hums through him. Not joy, but a quiet absence of resistance. For the first time, movement feels effortless, like he's being moved by something greater than will. As he finishes, he hears soft footsteps. The monk appears, hands clasped behind his back. Rio bows instinctively. The monk looks at the polished floor, then at him. Better. Rio exhales. I still don't understand what this teaches. The monk gestures toward the broom. That broom is not a broom. It is your mind. You can fight the dust or you can clear it. Both require movement, but only one is done with presence. He walks slowly to the open door, gazing out over the misty forest. The world tells you to add more. More motion, more ambition, more control. But the warrior who sees clearly does the opposite. He subtracts. He empties. Until nothing remains but awareness itself, Rio stands silent, feeling the truth in those words. In his old life, silence meant stagnation. Here it feels like power. The monk continues. A full cup cannot receive water. You came here full of pride, fear, noise. Until you empty yourself, you cannot learn the way of stillness. Rio looks down at the broom in his hand, realizing it's not a punishment. It's a mirror. That night, after the temple lamps dim, Rio sits outside the dojo steps. Crickets sing softly in the darkness. He closes his eyes and listens. At first, he hears 1,000 sounds. Rustling leaves, crackling wood, the pulse in his own ears. But as his attention deepens, the sounds merge into one, a single hum of existence. For a fleeting moment, he feels suspended in it, aware of the space between breaths, between heartbeats. The monk's voice echoes from memory. When you can see the silence inside sound, you are beginning to wake. Rio opens his eyes. The stars above the mountains are motionless, yet alive. He feels something ancient stir within him, not pride, not victory, but stillness that breathes. He whispers to himself, maybe stillness is not the absence of action, but the awareness within it. And for the first time since childhood, he falls asleep without dreaming. When the mind becomes quiet enough to listen, even silence begins to speak. Chapter 3. The Strike Without Thought, Part 1. When the mind hesitates, the body falters. When the mind disappears, the moment strikes for you. Dawn rises like a blade slicing through fog. The air is crisp, the world painted in quiet silver. Rio kneels at the dojo's edge, waiting for instruction. He's been here for weeks, sweeping, meditating, carrying water. Not a single lesson in combat, not one swing of a sword. But today feels different. The monk stands before him, holding 2 wooden bokken. Without a word, he tosses one across the floor. It slides toward Rio, stopping perfectly at his knees. Rio grips it tightly, heart thundering. At last, he thinks, something familiar. The monk takes his stance, feet grounded, gaze steady. Strike, he says simply. Rio exhales, recalls his training, and lunges forward. The monk deflects with effortless grace, his body barely moving. Again, Rio attacks faster, stronger. Each time, the monk's counter feels invisible. No wasted motion, no strain. Rio grows frustrated. His strikes are technically perfect, his form flawless, yet every attack collapses against the monk's calm like a wave breaking on stone. Again, Rio's breath grows ragged. Sweat drips down his neck. His hands ache. He swings harder, searching for power through force, through precision, through pride. But the monk blocks without even blinking. Finally, Rio screams in anger, slamming the bokken down. This is impossible. The monk looks at him with compassion, not pity. You strike well, he says, but you think too much. Rio frowns. How can I not think? By being, the monk answers. Your body already knows. Your mind only interrupts. He steps closer, placing the wooden sword gently against Rio's chest. Your training is trapped in your head. You calculate, predict, anticipate. But the moment you do, the moment is already gone. Rio's breath slows. The words hit like truth he'd long avoided. The monk continues. Presence is not focus. Focus is effort. Presence is absence of thought, of fear, of self. Rio shakes his head. You make it sound like I should just disappear. The monk's eyes glimmer. Exactly. He turns away. Rest. Tomorrow, you'll try again. That night, Rio sits alone in the courtyard, staring at his calloused hands. He feels the weight of the sword, even after setting it down. The rain begins again, light and rhythmic, pattering softly on the stone. He remembers his first competition, how his sensei once said, "A sword that trembles in the hand reflects a heart that trembles within." He didn't understand then. Now, he does. All his life, he's fought from thought, from ego, from memory, from fear of losing. Never once from pure being. He looks up at the temple roofs, shimmering in moonlight. Somewhere deep in the halls, he hears the faint sound of the monk's sandals. Slow, unhurried, timeless, Rio breathes deeply, feeling the air enter, expand, and leave his body. With each breath, the noise in his head softens. He closes his eyes, imagines standing once again in the dojo. No audience, no opponent, no self, just the sound of the wind passing through the wooden beams and the pulse of the earth beneath his feet. The monk's voice returns in memory. When the mind is still, the strike strikes itself. Rio doesn't fully understand, but something in those words settles like a seed in his chest. Tomorrow, he will step back into the dojo, but this time, he will bring less of himself. The harder he tries to control the moment, the further it slips away. Tomorrow, he must learn to let the moment move through him. Chapter 3. The Strike Without Thought, Part 2. The next morning dawns clear and silent. No wind, no clouds. The air itself feels as if it's holding its breath. Rio stands barefoot in the center of the dojo, the wooden sword resting in his palms. The monk watches from a distance, motionless as a mountain. "Begin," he says. Rio exhales. He raises the book in slowly, feeling its weight settle into his body. For a moment, his mind starts to calculate angle, distance, timing. But he catches himself. He remembers the broom, the sweeping, the rhythm, the quiet between movements. He breathes. Then he moves. The sword cuts the air cleanly, faster than before, but not from effort, from flow. Each strike lands smoother, quieter, shitotsu. The monk counters easily, but says nothing. Rio continues, his movements growing more fluid, less deliberate. He stops fighting the air. He begins to listen to it. His breath and body merge into one seamless rhythm. Thought dissolves. There is no teacher, no student, no room, only motion. Then, a single mistake. The monk feints left, steps forward, and taps Rio's chest with the tip of his bokken. Rio flinches. The moment breaks. The monk lowers his weapon. "Did you feel that?" Rio nods slowly. The hesitation. "Yes," the monk says, thought returning, ego returning. The moment does not hesitate. "Only you do." They repeat the exercise. Again, again, until sweat darkens the floor beneath Rio's feet. At one point, he collapses to his knees. "I can't do this," he gasps. The monk kneels beside him, voice quiet. "You are still trying to do. The moment cannot be forced. It can only be allowed." He taps Rio's forehead gently. "You must stop thinking of yourself as the one who strikes." Rio looks up. "Then what am I?" The monk smiles faintly. The space between breaths. Something about those words pierces him deeper than exhaustion. They sound simple, yet they unravel everything he thought he knew about mastery. That evening, Rio walks to the edge of the forest. The sun bleeds crimson across the horizon. He closes his eyes and listens to the cicadas, to the distant rush of a waterfall, to the still hum of life beneath it all. He raises the wooden sword once more. No teacher, no audience, just movement. He strikes, and something changes. The blade cuts through air without resistance. Not faster, not stronger, but truer. He doesn't think about the strike. He is the strike. When the motion ends, he feels no pride, No victory, only stillness lingering like the echo of breath after prayer. He remembers the monk's voice, steady as the wind. When there is no mind, the sword is free. Rio lowers the bokken. The forest seems to breathe with him. In that quiet, he understands what he had been missing all along. That mastery was never about control. It was about surrender. He looks toward the temple, the last light fading behind the rooftops. Tomorrow, the training will deepen. But tonight, for the first time in his life, his heart is silent. The student has tasted presence, but fear still lingers beneath it, and fear will soon demand to be faced. Chapter 4. The Fear Between Breaths, Part 1. Night drapes over the mountain like a slow exhale. Mist curls along the temple grounds, silvered by the moonlight. Crickets whisper between stones, and in the center of the courtyard, two shadows face each other, the monk and the student, each holding a wooden sword. The air is so still that even the torches seem afraid to flicker. Tonight, the monk says softly, "You will learn what moves you and what stops you." Rio nods. His grip tightens. Sweat beads at his temple. He has trained for weeks, learned to flow without thought, to move without hesitation. But tonight, something feels different. The silence is heavier, the air sharper. The monk bows once, then he moves, a blur of motion. The wooden sword whistles through the dark. Rio reacts too late. The monk's strike stops inches from his neck. He flinches backward, heart hammering, breath tearing out of rhythm. Again, the monk says. They reset. Another strike, swift, precise. Rio raises his weapon, blocks, barely. But his body trembles, his breath catches. The monk's presence feels larger than the night itself. Again, again. Each strike comes faster, and each time, Rio's body recoils before it even meets the blade. Finally, the monk stops. The courtyard falls into silence, except for Rio's ragged breathing. "You fight ghosts," the monk says quietly. Rio's voice cracks. I was afraid." "Of what?" "Of being struck, of losing." The monk's eyes glint like steel in moonlight. "You have already lost," he says, "because your fear chose before you did." Those words land heavier than any blow. Rio lowers his weapon. His chest heaves. He can feel his pulse racing inside his ears, the rhythm chaotic and uncontrollable. The monk sits down on the stone floor. "Sit," he commands. Rio obeys. For a long moment, neither speaks. The night hums quietly around them. Then the monk says, "Fear is not the enemy. It is your untrained ally. The blade trembles only when you resist it." Rio stares at the ground. "Then how do I stop resisting?" The monk draws a slow breath and exhales through his nose. "You don't stop. You listen." He gestures to Rio's chest. "Close your eyes." Rio does. "What do you feel?" "My heart," he whispers. "What else?" "Heat, pressure." "Where?" "In my throat, my chest, my stomach." "Good," the monk says. "That is fear's voice. It does not come to stop you. It comes to awaken you." The monk's tone softens, almost like a chant. When you breathe into fear, it softens. When you run from it, it rules you. They sit in silence. The sound of Rio's heartbeat slowly steadies. The mountain wind brushes against his skin, cool and grounding. For the first time, he realizes that fear isn't something happening to him. It's something happening within him. And within, he still has choice. He inhales again, this time slow away. deeper. The trembling fades. When he opens his eyes, the monk is smiling faintly. You see, stillness isn't the absence of fear, it is what moves through it. Rio bows his head, words caught in his throat. The monk rises. Tomorrow night, we will face it again. As the monk walks away, Rio stays seated in the moonlight. He can still feel the echo of fear in his chest, but it no longer feels like an enemy. It feels like breath itself. Alive, ancient, powerful. The night deepens, and with it, something within him begins to awaken. But to master fear, one must walk into it completely. And tomorrow, the test will come without warning. Chapter 4. The Fear Between Breaths, Part 2. Morning breaks without sound. Mist drifts through the courtyard like a forgotten dream. Rio stands barefoot on the cold stones, eyes closed, feeling the mountain breathe. Every inhale, cool air brushes against his lungs. Every exhale, his fear stirs, then softens. He remembers the monk's words echoing through the silence of last night. Fear is your untrained ally. The lesson stays with him, like a faint ember still glowing. The temple bell rings once, deep, resonant, ancient. The monk steps into the courtyard. No sword this time, no instruction. He only says, "Walk." Rio follows him down a narrow path winding into the forest. Leaves crunch underfoot. Sunlight flickers through branches. The air grows thin, sharp with pine. Finally, they stop at a cliff's edge. Below them, the valley yawns wide, an ocean of clouds. The monk looks out, his robe rippling in the wind. He says quietly, "Everything you fear lies here, between this step and the sky." Rio stares down. His stomach tightens. The drop is endless, a dizzying void that pulls at him. The monk steps forward, so close that the edge kisses his sandals. "Breathe," he says. "Do not look at the fall. Look into it." Rio's breath shortens. His chest tightens. Every instinct screams to step back. But the monk's calm cuts through the panic. Fear is the body's way of asking, "Are you here?" Rio inhales, trembling, and on that breath, he stops running. He doesn't fight the fear, doesn't argue with it. He simply lets it be. For a moment, he feels everything. The wind against his skin, the blood in his veins, the heartbeat pulsing like a drum of life itself. And in that total awareness, fear dissolves into clarity. The monk steps back and places a hand on Rio's shoulder. "What do you feel now?" Rio exhales slowly. "I feel alive." The monk nods. Then the lesson is complete. You cannot destroy fear. You can only awaken through it. They walk back to the temple in silence. Rio's steps are lighter now, not because the fear is gone, but because it no longer owns him. That night, the monk challenges him again to a spar. The moon hangs pale above the courtyard. Their wooden swords gleam like bones in the light. The monk strikes first, swift and sudden as before. Rio's heart jolts, but this time he breathes. No panic, no freezing. The blade comes. He moves, not faster, not stronger, but present. Wood meets wood with a sharp crack. The sound echoes through the night, clean and perfect. For a heartbeat, the world stops. Only the sound of breath remains. The monk lowers his weapon and studies Rio's face. "What did you see?" he asks. Rio answers softly, "Nothing and everything. The strike, the wind, my breath. All at once." The monk smiles faintly. "Then you are learning the way of stillness." He turns to leave, but pauses. "Remember this, he says. Fear never disappears. It waits, it watches, but now it bows to you. As the monk vanishes into shadow, Rio looks toward the valley below. The same wind that once chilled him now feels like an ally, a reminder of his breath, his anchor. He whispers to himself, I am not free from fear. I am free within it. The night answers only with silence. And within that silence, Rio feels something unshakable take root. The first pulse of presence that does not fade. When fear bows, silence awakens, and from that silence, mastery begins to echo. Chapter 5. The Echo of Silence. Part 1. The morning mist rolls down the temple steps like drifting silk. A faint breeze stirs the bamboo leaves, whispering ancient hymns only the mountain remembers. Rio stands barefoot in the courtyard, eyes closed, wooden sword resting at his side. The world feels different now, not quieter, but clearer. He can hear the soft scrape of his breath against the cool air, the distant drip of water from a stone basin, the pulse of life around him, trees, wind, insects, each sound distinct, yet woven into one eternal rhythm. For the first time, silence isn't something he listens to. It's something he feels. The monk approaches slowly, his steps soundless. Tell me, he says. What do you hear? Rio smiles faintly. Everything and nothing. The monk nods. Then you are beginning to understand. He gestures to the open space. Today, we do not fight, we listen. Rio tilts his head, confused. Listen. To what? The monk raises his hand, palm open. To what remains after the noise is gone. He sits upon the stone floor and closes his eyes. Rio joins him. Time slips away. At first, his mind chatters. Thoughts, images, fragments of old memories, whispers of doubt. But each time he notices them, he returns to breath. Each time he breathes, the world expands again. After what feels like hours, the noise fades entirely. All that remains is presence. In that vast stillness, Rio feels as if he is dissolving into the air itself. No boundaries, no tension, only awareness. And then, a sound. A single droplet falls into the basin nearby. Plink. The ripples expand, slow and beautiful. The sound doesn't disturb the silence. It completes it. Rio opens his eyes and looks toward the monk. The old man is still, utterly unmoving, yet alive in a way that transcends motion. In that moment, Rio understands something wordless. Silence isn't the opposite of sound. It is the space that gives sound meaning. The monk finally opens his eyes. Zanshin, he says softly, is not stillness before or after movement. It is stillness within movement. He rises, gestures for Rio to stand, and takes a bamboo sword from the rack. Now, he says, show me your silence. They bow to each other. The monk strikes first, fast, sharp, precise. Rio moves instinctively, deflects, pivots, breathes. No hesitation, no thought. Strike, parry step, breath. Each motion flows into the next like the current of a river. For the first time, Rio's mind doesn't rush ahead or fall behind. He isn't performing. He's being performed through. The monk's next strike comes harder. Rio meets it calmly, eyes steady. A loud crack echoes through the courtyard. Both swords freeze in midair, locked. And then, the monk stops. He lowers his blade slowly, studying Rio's gaze. In that gaze, he finds no struggle, No pride, no victory, only stillness. Without a word, the monk suddenly raises his sword and delivers a fast, unexpected strike. Rio reacts, fluid, effortless. The blade meets his in a clean deflection. No fear, no delay, silence. The monk steps back, breathing slow. Then he smiles, the kind of smile that feels like an entire lifetime in a single curve. Now, he says, you understand, Zanshin. Rio stands there, heart calm, breath even. He can feel the wind, the weight of the sword, the scent of pine, and something greater moving through it all. Presence. He realizes that this moment, isn't the end of the lesson. It's the beginning of understanding that never ends. The monk turns toward the valley. You are ready, he says quietly. The mountain has given you silence. Now, you must carry it into the noise. Rio bows deeply, eyes glistening. For the first time, the silence doesn't feel like emptiness. It feels like home. But true presence is not tested in peace. It is forged again when the world returns to chaos. Chapter 5. The Echo of Silence. Part 2. The sun begins its descent behind the ridges, washing the sky in hues of amber and ash. Rio stands by the temple gate, the same gate he crossed months ago, with restless ambition and wounded pride. Now, that same air carries the weight of farewell. The monk joins him, silent as ever. He hands Rio a folded cloth. Inside lies the wooden sword, worn smooth by countless hours of practice. Rio looks at it for a long moment. It's strange, he says quietly. When I first held this sword, it felt heavy. Now it feels light. The monk's lips curve faintly. When the heart is burdened, even breath is heavy. When the mind is empty, even a blade becomes air. They begin walking toward the mountain path. The forest hums with the pulse of dusk, cicadas singing, wind sighing through cedar branches. At the edge of the cliff where Rio once faced his fear, they stop. Below them, the world stretches vast and silent. The monk gazes at the valley. Do you remember what I told you the first night? Rio nods. That I had mastered movement, but not stillness. And now, Rio breathes deeply, letting the wind fill his chest. Now I see that stillness isn't the absence of movement. It's movement, guided by awareness. The monk turns to him, eyes soft but unwavering. You have learned to listen. To your fear, your breath, your silence. But remember, mastery is not kept in the mountains. It must walk among men. Rio looks toward the distant city lights, flickering like stars below. I was afraid to return, he admits. Afraid I'd lose this calm once the noise returns. The monk places a hand on his shoulder. Zanshin, he says, is not something you keep. It is something you are. The silence within you cannot be stolen. Unless you forget, it exists. They stand together as the first stars bloom across the twilight sky. For a long time, neither speaks. There's no need. Words would only disturb the perfection of that moment. Finally, Rio bows deeply. Thank you, Master. The monk nods. Go. Carry the silence into the storm. Rio begins his descent. Each step feels both heavier and lighter, weighted with purpose, lifted by presence. The wind brushes past him like an old friend whispering reminders of every lesson learned. Fear is the ally. Stillness is strength. Presence is the path. As the temple fades behind him, he does not look back. The monk watches from afar. the faintest smile tracing his weathered face. He murmurs to himself, the moment the student stops needing the teacher is the moment the lesson lives on. Hours later, Rio reaches the foot of the mountain. The city sprawls before him. Neon lights, honking horns, endless motion. Once, it would have overwhelmed him. Now, he walks through it like the eye of a storm, untouched, unhurried, unseen, yet fully seeing. A car honks, a man shouts, 1,000 screens flicker. But beneath it all, Rio hears it. That same pulse, that same silence, woven into the noise. He smiles. Zanshin. He closes his eyes briefly and breathes. When he opens them, the world feels alive, radiant, balanced. He carries stillness not as a memory, but as a way of being. Yet the journey does not end in peace. It ends in the world, where presence must prove itself among chaos. Chapter 6. The Lingering Mind, Part 1. The city hums like a living organism. Neon veins pulsing, steel towers breathing heat. Crowds surge through crosswalks, their faces lit by screens instead of the sun. Yet, within this storm of motion, one figure moves differently. Rio. His pace is steady, measured, every step a deliberate act of awareness, every breath an anchor amidst chaos. It has been months since he descended from the mountain, yet the silence has not left him. It lingers in his movements, in his gaze, in the stillness between sounds. Even here, surrounded by 1,000 distractions, he walks as if guided by an unseen rhythm. A child bumps into him and drops a bag of groceries. Rio kneels without hesitation, helping gather the fallen fruit. The mother, flustered, apologizes. He simply smiles. It's all right. His voice carries the softness of water touching stone. Gentle, certain, unshakable. They move on. Rio watches the flow of people rushing past, the panic of being late, the endless chase of urgency. He sees himself in them, the man he once was, always moving, never arriving. He pauses at a crosswalk. The traffic light changes, engines roar, yet within him, silence. He feels the wind against his skin, the heartbeat in his chest, the vibration of life itself. Each sensation distinct, yet part of a single moment. This is Zanshin, he thinks, the lingering mind. As he walks, fragments of memory return. The monk's voice, the courtyard's echo, the moonlight over the valley. Each lesson no longer feels like something remembered, but something lived. Presence has become his nature. He enters a small dojo tucked between skyscrapers. Inside, the sound of wooden swords meeting fills the air. Young students train, energetic but clumsy, chasing mastery with impatience. Their instructor bows as Rio enters. Welcome, traveler. Are you here to train? Rio shakes his head gently. Only to observe. He sits at the edge of the hall, watching the students move. He can feel their struggle, the tension, the fear of failure, the desperate need to prove. Every strike is loud but empty. Every block sharp but shallow. He remembers himself that way. He smiles, not in judgment, but in understanding. After a while, one student collapses, breathing hard, frustration boiling over. He slams his sword on the floor. I can't do it. My mind keeps getting in the way. Rio rises slowly and approaches him. Your mind isn't in the way, he says calmly. It's simply louder than your breath. The boy looks up, confused. Ryo picks up the wooden sword and places it gently in the boy's hands. "Close your eyes," Ryo says. "Breathe." The boy obeys. "Now," Ryo continues, "before you strike, listen. Not to the noise outside, but to the silence beneath it. When you can hear that silence, let your body move on its own." The boy exhales, raises the sword, and strikes. Simple, clean, effortless. The sound echoes through the hall, resonant and pure. Ryo nods. "Good. That was your first true strike." The instructor watches, eyes wide. "Who are you?" Ryo bows slightly. "No one," he says softly. "Just a man who once forgot how to breathe." The hall falls silent. Even the city noise outside seems to pause, if only for a heartbeat. As Ryo steps outside again, the sunset reflects against the glass towers. Red, gold, infinite. He feels no pride, no sadness, only presence. He walks on, disappearing into the flow of the city. A single breath moving through the noise, leaving behind a trail of stillness that lingers long after he's gone. Yet one final test remains, not against others, but within himself, to prove that presence endures even when the heart is shaken. Chapter 6. The Lingering Mind, Part 2. Night returns to the city. Rain falls in thin silver threads, wrapping the streets in reflection. The lights of towers shimmer in puddles, blades of color slicing through the dark. Ryo walks without haste. Each droplet that strikes his skin feels deliberate, as if the sky itself is teaching him rhythm. He passes crowds of hurried faces, umbrellas colliding, cars splashing water over curbs. But he does not flinch. He simply moves, aware of each sensation: cold rain, warm breath, the hum of life beneath the noise. At the corner, a commotion breaks the calm. Two men shout near a small food stall, their voices sharp, frantic, full of ego. A vendor's cart tips, bowls shatter, steam hisses upward. Ryo steps closer. One man shoves the other to the ground, fury in his eyes. The younger one grabs a shard of glass from the broken stall. His hand trembles. The moment teeters on the edge of chaos. Without thinking, Ryo moves. Not fast, not forceful, simply present. He steps between them, eyes clear, breath steady. Enough. The word is soft, but it lands like thunder. Both men freeze. Ryo's gaze holds them, not with dominance, but with something weightier, awareness. The younger man's hand stills. His breath falters. Ryo gently takes the shard from him and sets it down. "You don't need to fight," he says. "You're already hurting. Don't let the pain multiply." The man stares at him, chest heaving. Then slowly, he drops to his knees. The rain thickens. Ryo crouches beside him, places a hand on his shoulder. "Fear, anger, noise, they will always come," he says. "But you decide what passes through you and what stays." The man nods weakly. Tears blend with the rain. When it's over, the crowd disperses, murmuring. Ryo stands alone under the streetlight, calm, soaked, utterly still. He looks up at the sky. Each raindrop catches the light before vanishing into shadow. And in that fleeting shimmer, he sees the lesson of his entire path. Nothing lasts, yet everything lingers in its own way. He closes his eyes. The city hums, the world breathes, and within that breath, he feels it again. That sacred thread connecting silence and motion, the lingering mind. He remembers the monk's final words, spoken the morning he left the temple. Presence is the weapon no one sees, and the shield no one can break. Ryo bows his head slightly, not to anyone, not even to the past. He bows to the quiet teacher within. As the rain continues to fall, he smiles faintly. The journey is not over. It never will be. For presence is not something one achieves. It is something one returns to, again and again, with every breath. He walks on, fading into the night, each step measured, silent, alive. A warrior, not of battle, but of awareness. And though the world around him screams in motion, he carries the mountain within him. The stillness lingers. Epilogue. The core moral. The warrior's true strength is not in his strike, but in his stillness. The rain fades, the world slows, a faint breath, then silence. If this story moved something within you, take a moment, breathe, then, like the warrior who returns to his path, click subscribe so you never lose your way back to presence. Share this lesson with someone walking through their own storm, and in the comments, tell me, what does stillness mean to you? Until next time, stay grounded, stay aware, and carry the silence within.